Welcome, this is Georgina Villasenor Lee. It's week 4 of our Public Personnel Management course. I will be discussing generations in the workplace. The presentation will start off with identifying my generation and the characteristics which I believe are in alignment with the presentation we reviewed. I will also go over an observation of my father's generation and also observe and compare what his characteristics are and whether they are also in alignment with what we were shown. And then lastly, I will discuss the management strategies that are needed as it pertains to generations in the workplace. So I was born in 1984, and according to the presentation, that makes me a generation Y. What I found in reviewing the presentation and reflecting on my own characteristics is that I find that I do align with some of these characteristics, but not all. I believe that I am a blend between Generation X and Generation Y. And so I know I'm kind of at the beginning of the Generation Y range of dates. So it starts off with 1981 through 2000. And I think a lot of it also is because I grew up closely with my brother, who's more so a Generation X. And he exhibits a lot of those characteristics too. So I think those have influenced who I am today. So in the presentation, it discussed that for Generation Yers, we really value flexibility, and I completely agree with that. I think that's one of my strengths and one of the things that has carried me through my career with the City of Riverside. When I began with them, I really was open-minded to just learning and getting all the experience I could. So I was very flexible in that respect. I was moved around different divisions just because of that flexibility that I had. And then also diverse. So I think those kind of go hand in hand in terms of being diverse and open-minded when it came to obtaining new skills or just getting to know people in the workplace as well. So those are two characteristics I completely agree with when it comes to Generation Y and where I see myself as well. One of the characteristics from Generation X, which I believe I also exhibit, is a goal-oriented mentality, which is one of the challenges I'm having right now in my current employment, is that the workplace culture there is not necessarily goal-oriented. So sometimes it's hard to realize that you are accomplishing things. There's not a clear vision. So I would say that this would be one of the characteristics where I feel the Generation X and Y kind of blend together for me. Then also there was a not surprising discussion on how Generation Yers really still depend on their parents as adults, and that's something that I really strive to be, was very independent at an early age. And I think a part of it is also from a cultural perspective. My parents, I'm first generation here, so there was a huge language and cultural barrier. So I was the more outgoing, more aggressive type of personality, to where I had to do certain things for my parents. So it doesn't surprise me to see Generation Yers still become dependent on their parents, and I think that can actually be detrimental. I work in higher education, so we've had situations where parents do call on behalf of their children from an employment perspective to inquire about either their benefits or even their application, where they're at in the process or why they were not selected. And also from a complaints perspective, I just got a call this week from a parent who wanted to file a complaint for their child. And so I had to ask, hey, is this child, the age of 18, or are they an adult? And so I had to explain to the parent that the complaint would need to come from the student directly, so that we had accurate details of what occurred, but also from a privacy for FERPA reasons. So this is what I believe is true regarding me, is that I'm a combination between Generation X and Generation Y, with respect to some of the characteristics. So I grew up in a household with my father being the sole breadwinner, and I think that's something that was very common with baby boomers. And so my father also, he's not from the United States. He came here in the early 70s. And so I think some of the characteristics that he exhibits too vary and don't necessarily fall within what was explained to us for the baby boomers because of that. But two of the characteristics I will say that were explained that are true in regards to him is that they work long hours. And that's something that I remember was that my dad was kind of a weekend parent. So he did work very long hours during the week. And again, I think in part that's due to the sole breadwinner situation in our household. He also was one who really valued or values personal growth, and that's something that he really instilled within us um, when it came to academics or even within our careers once we started working. And so with that, he really just encouraged us to always be willing to learn and to always improve ourselves and to grow. Some of the characteristics that I believe he exhibits from a traditionalist generation too is his loyalty to the organization he was with before he retired. He was there, I think, for almost 25 years. So this really exhibits that trait. And also, he's very rule oriented. So he very much carried that authoritative role in our home and at work as well. He worked his way up from a very entry level position into a supervisory position as well. So overall, when we discuss generations in the workplace, it's important for managers to understand that this is also an aspect of diversity and very important to the workplace in terms of what different individuals can contribute. And we are in a time where there are 4 generations in the workplace, and so you have individuals with different motivating factors, people who are seeking different things that will also engage them in the workplace and result in more productivity or performance and ultimately organizational outcomes. A lot of what we see in today, at least where I work, is that we have retirees come back into the workforce as contingent workers to assist maybe in filling some temporary vacancies or just for the knowledge base that they have. So it's important for managers to understand, for example, myself, I really value flexibility. I'm a caretaker for my husband, and so a work-life balance is very important to me, along with a flexible schedule. Along with that, I do really value much the parental leaves that are available or just leaves to care for a family member, as opposed to someone who maybe is not in the same situation as myself. So managers do need to understand that there is not a one size fits all approach. It really needs to be tailored to the specific employee and what is going on at that moment. So I don't anticipate having to caregive for my husband the rest of my tenure or life. He continues to make progress. So that may change in the future. Also, as a Generation Y, I also value my input into some sort of decisions being made, much of the view from Mary Parker Follett, as opposed to someone maybe with a traditionalist or who comes from a traditionalist generation who just likes to be told what to do. They need to be given clear instructions. And so this may more so take the Taylor's approach in terms of not really valuing what the employee has to say and more so just telling them what to do and making sure that they do it efficiently as well. I think in general you can kind of see the transition or the evolution of these generations from traditionalists to baby boomers, which exhibit more of the traits of your more traditionalist theories that move away from the industrialization mentality. So as you go from the Generation X to the Generation Yers, you see more of the Maslow's hierarchy, where employees are more so needing survival, achievement, appreciation, development, in order to stay motivated. So I think that's also important for managers to understand that from that perspective. It's no longer just efficiency, it's really making sure that you are fostering an environment that empowers and engages employees to continue to perform well. And managers are responsible for carrying out being that connection between the organization's policies that hopefully develop. They're developed to tailor to the needs of employees in general through leaves, flexible schedules, things of that nature. And to really also advocate for their employees to managers or administrators who are making these types of policies, or even to that extent, legislators and politicians as well. Thanks for checking out my presentation. Have a blessed day.